This story begins on a rainy night on a battlefield. On top of the mountain of corpses was Qin Feng, who despite being under the effect of accelerated aging 100 times, had still managed to clear the ruins of the ancient god. A woman holding a dagger praised Qin Feng for being impressive and decided to take the divine artifact called Eye of Judgment. Qin Feng, injured and on the brink of death, asked his sister Qin Xiaoyu why she was betraying him. Coldly, Qin Xiaoyu made it clear that Qin Feng was nothing more than an adopted child whom her parents took in. She did not consider him her brother since he did not share the same blood as her. A blonde man named Song Fei appeared and mentioned that Qin Feng had turned out to be useful. Resting his hand on her shoulder and holding the divine artifact, he smiled and thanked Qin Feng since without him, Qin Xiaoyu and he would never have obtained the divine artifact. To completely drain Qin Feng's lifespan in one go, he had worked hard to obtain the soul-stealing blade that was now embedded in his body. He asked if Qin Feng liked his farewell gift. Qin Feng had raised Qin Xiaoyu after their parents passed away, supporting her in school, and even after the game descended upon the world. He risked his life countless times for her, but now seeing that she had betrayed him, he realized that he had judged her wrongly. Qin Xiaoyu made it clear that after their parents died, Qin Feng kept meddling in her life, giving her orders and controlling her. Before, when Song Fei and she needed his protection, he was still somewhat useful, but now that they had the divine artifact, the only value he had for them was gone. Song Fei lunged at Qin Feng to end his life, promising that he would take good care of Qin Xiaoyu. As death was approaching, Qin Feng promised not to let them get away with it. Just before he could finish the sentence, Song Fei took his life. In 2025, the godforsaken game descended where the only currency was lifespan. Dying caused a loss of lifespan, while killing monsters granted lifespan. Players could spend lifespan to bring their in-game abilities into the real world. The strong could crush tanks with their own hands, cut airplanes with a sword, and even withstand nuclear explosions with their own bodies. From that moment on, the world changed drastically, and chaos spread. He fought to survive with his sister, enduring countless hardships, barely managing to enter the top 100 of global powerhouses. After overcoming endless dangers and narrowly escaping death countless times, he finally managed to conquer the ruins of the ancient god and obtained the divine artifact called Eye of Judgment. At last, he had the qualifications to reach the top, but who would have thought that the price of his success would be betrayal by his only family? All his efforts in life were nothing more than an interference, and all his struggles only paved the way for another's success. If he could live again, he swore to fight only for himself. But then something happened, and Qin Feng opened his eyes. Surprisingly, he was in his room. He quickly sat up and realized that this was the real world. He was confused since he remembered having died, but once he turned on his phone he saw that it was the year 2025. When looking out the window, he saw the beautiful city, realizing that he had been reborn 9 years ago, the day the god-forsaken game descended to Earth. The next day, his sister, Qin Xiaoyu, kicked open the door and upon seeing that Qin Feng was at home drinking coffee, she got angry and asked why he wasn't answering her calls. She kicked the trash can. Qin Feng remembered that on the day the Forsaken game descended, he and Qin Xiaoyu had a big fight over Song Fei. On the wall were the posters of Song Fei. Before the game descended, Song Fei was a somewhat famous underground idol and Qin Xiaoyu was his obsessed fan. Song Fei seemed glamorous on the surface, but in reality, he was a complete scoundrel who had deceived many of his fans to take their money and take advantage of their bodies. And to prevent Qin Xiaoyu from being scammed, Qin Feng always forbade her from associating with that guy, but in the end, our boy was accused of controlling her life. Pointing at Qin Feng with her finger, Xiaoyu asked if he was deaf, saying that it was his fault that Song Fei had lost first place this month, threatening him that if Qin Feng did not give her money to help Song Fei rise in rank, she would get angry. Just then, with a cold expression, Qin Feng gave her a strong slap on the face, making her fall to the ground. Her cheeks swelled, and blood began to flow from her nose, and her eyes filled with tears. She could not believe that Qin Feng had hit her. With a piercing gaze, Qin Feng made it clear that he neither had the desire nor the time to argue with her, warning that if she kept barking, he was going to break her mouth. He threw the credit card over her head and said that this was the money their parents had left behind, and no matter how difficult the situation had been all these years, he had never touched a single cent. For the sake of their parents, he decided not to lower himself to her level, but he made one thing clear: from today on, he did not have a sister like her. Xiaoyu began to cry and could not help but get angry. In his past life, to protect Xiaoyu, Qin Feng lost too many opportunities, too many secret treasures and dungeons that required risky exploration, which he gave up. He took out some sleeping pills, and using water, swallowed them. He was curious and without this burden, he was going to go far. This time he decided to use his understanding of the game from his past life to get ahead of everyone, and from now on Qin Zhaoyu was on her own. And as for Song Fei, our boy decided to take his head personally. Qin Feng fell asleep and appeared in the choice hall. He had missed this place since the first time he came here. He was so nervous that it took him several hours to complete his career choice and leave. But this time, he had to be faster. In his past life, he chose the warrior to protect Qin Zhaoyu. The warrior class was not weak, but it was no longer the right choice. Now without the burden of Qin Zhaoyu, he was going to be able to clear solo much faster. Mobility and reaction were the most important things, so without hesitating for a second, Qin Feng chose the assassin class. But then something unexpected happened, and the system reported that the divine artifact Eye of Judgment had been successfully bound. The Eye of Judgment was activated. It had a passive authority. Upon entering the Forsaken game, Qin Feng was going to automatically obtain the highest ranking profession and talent. Our boy was in shock upon seeing that the Eye of Judgment had linked to him after his rebirth, realizing how it worked. As long as the artifact recognized its owner, and even if it was stolen, it would be useless, believing that perhaps this was the reason why he had been reborn. Just then, shadow began to enter his body, then his body started to change and his hair turned white, becoming a shadow. Qin Feng's appearance had changed. Shadow was the highest level hidden profession for assassins. It was completely different from the warrior profession he chose in his past life. Just obtaining this profession had already given him enormous power. Qin Feng's eyes widened in surprise when he remembered that each profession had a very small chance of unlocking its hidden higher tier profession, and the authority of judgment actually made this probability a certainty. The system activated, informing that the authority of judgment was the most genuine and ancient primordial authority in the universe. Its power surpassed rules and order. Temporarily, Qin Feng could not activate this authority actively since he did not possess divinity, but its passive effect was active. This revelation left our boy in shock. In his past life, it was not until the 7th year after the God-forsaken game descended that a powerful player managed to leave God's abandoned realm and reach the realm of order. Only then did humanity learn about the existence of the power of order. But in fact, even years later, no one obtained the power of order. Qin Feng never expected to achieve this. Now at the beginning of his journey, he had already obtained the primordial authority that surpassed order and rules. As long as he could leave God's abandoned realm and reach the realm of order to obtain divinity, he could activate this authority, now having another goal in this life. Now that the profession selection had been completed, the system asked him to enter his game alias. Qin Feng hesitated for a moment but then chose Shadow since his profession had been born from the shadow. Qin Feng was teleported to the God's abandoned realm. This was a ruined land, full of countless monsters. He had to be careful since the monsters were ready to tear him apart and steal his lifespan. One could leave the town, kill monsters, and earn tradable lifespan. But if they died in the game, they would lose half of their lifespan, both tradable and non-tradable. Qin Feng was in Shell Town, a safe zone. Here there were no monsters and players could not attack each other, and the lifespan loss speed was multiplied by 1. Many people were dragged into the game. Some had taken a nap after eating and some others had fallen asleep after a long workday, only to end up in this place. Everyone's attention was fixed on Qin Feng. No one knew what profession he had, nor why it looked so different from theirs. Seeing the dagger, some realized that he was an assassin. Soon, powerful figures from various countries were going to appear one after another, reconfiguring the order of this world. If Qin Feng wanted to get ahead of them, then he couldn't wait since practice waits for no one. Just then, 3 men and an archer were teleported back to the town. You see, if during the monster hunt players died, they would return to the town. The players were furious and panicked since the wild monsters were too strong. With one bite the monster had taken all their life, they had been fighting against a weak level 1 crawler. But even so, they had only managed to take away a third of its health together, and now that they had died, their lifespan had dropped to half. They asked the archer Lizzie what to do now. Qin Feng started observing her and remembered that archers started with short bows, realizing that she was also a hidden class. Lizzie noticed that Qin Feng was also a hidden class. With a kind smile, she asked if he wanted to team up with them. The monsters outside were really strong, and they couldn't handle them alone. Her team had already been annihilated once, so they had experience. Qin Feng refused and continued on his way. Lizzie's companions mocked him when they saw that he was pretending to be a pro. The 5 of them together had not been able to defeat the monster, so there was no way he could do it alone. According to them, Qin Feng was looking for death. Using the system, Lizzie saw that King Feng's alias was Shadow. While our boy was walking towards the exit of the town, Lizzie decided to follow him to see if they could find out what skills he had. She couldn't help but smile since maybe they could get new information about monsters and see how Qin Feng died. The land abandoned by the gods was a too unsettling and dangerous place. Lizzie and the others began to secretly follow Qin Feng. She did not know why she had ended up here, but with years of experience in online games, she quickly formed a group. However, the first monster they encountered outside of the town annihilated them. She knew that this monster was not an enemy that a level 1 player could defeat. Lizzie's friends were furious since Qin Feng's initial weapon was different from the group's assassin. He had a dagger, but Qin Feng had a short blade. The assassin felt envious since Qin Feng was even faster than him, but as an assassin, his agility should be the highest. Besides that, Qin Feng's clothing was different from his. Qin Feng seemed like an unusual player, so Lizzie decided to follow him as he might lead to crucial information. Qin Feng started staring at them, and upon feeling this, Lizzie quickly hid again without knowing if they had been noticed. Our boy used the shadow sneak technique and disappeared from the place without a trace, becoming a shadow. Lizzie and the others were somewhat confused to see that he had vanished into thin air. The assassin of the group realized that this was a stealth ability, an initial ability that granted invisibility. Qin Feng had become invisible. Lizzie decided to return to the town and look for ways to improve themselves. It was too dangerous to go out. They had already died once and their lifespan had already been reduced by half. They decided to look for NPCs to try to obtain hidden rewards like treasure chests. Shadow Sneak was a skill that allows the user to enter stealth for a duration. Attacking will reveal the user, and the first hit after breaking stealth deals increased damage. Stealth Mastery doubles the duration of stealth and increases the level of stealth by 1. As expected, the Shadow class was extraordinary. The stealth of a normal assassin at this level would be easy to detect, but the Shadow class had its own stealth mastery, which made it impossible for anyone, even monsters, to notice Qin Feng in the early stages of the game. Our boy couldn't help but think that Lizzie and her friends were naive since the beginner town had nothing that could really improve your strength. It was just a refuge for players. In this Forsaken game, weak players were nothing more than prey for monsters. A few seconds later, Qin Feng's stealth came to an end. For now, the duration wasn't very long. Luckily, the cooldown started as soon as he activated stealth. In just a few more seconds, he would be able to disappear again. The status window of Qin Feng appeared, his code name was Shadow, and his class was also Shadow. He had a non-tradable lifespan of 75 years and 0 tradable lifespan, strength of 13 points, constitution of 13 points, agility of 18 points, and spirit of 15 points. All players started with base stats of 10, and the different classes granted additional bonuses. The warrior class he had chosen in his past life only gave him 3 points in strength and constitution. But this time, the shadow class had granted improvements to all stats, and agility had increased by 8 points. He still had 5 free attribute points to assign. Most players used their points on strength or spirit to increase physical or magical attack power, but that was a big mistake. Without losing a second, Qin Feng assigned the 5 points to agility, now being 23 points. This statistic was key since in the early game, no matter how unallocated their stats, the monsters would always deal overwhelming damage to the players, and the only way to kill monsters without taking damage was to increase agility and boost speed. Then something caught Qin Feng's attention. There was a monster behind a tree. It was a level 1 crawler with a normal grade, but it was evolving. Qin Feng became alert, upon noticing that it continued absorbing lifespan. He quickly realized that this monster had been the one who had annihilated that group of 4 players. The crawler felt the presence of Qin Feng. It was somewhat injured because it had lost part of its HP. The monster attacked, but Qin Feng dodged it with a jump. When monsters killed players, they could obtain their lifespan, and if they absorbed enough, they could evolve. Qin Feng activated Shadow Sneak and unsheathed his short blade, and just before the crawler could get close, he disappeared into the air. While the crawler was trying to see where he had gone, Qin Feng appeared above and using Stealth Break Strike, landed on top of the monster and forcefully stabbed his short blade into its head, causing 174 damage, killing the monster and gaining 10 experience points. He did not expect to be able to kill the crawler in a single blow, but then he remembered that attacking the nape of a crawler triggered a critical hit. Just then, a system window appeared informing that the skill Backstab allowed doubling the damage if the attack came from outside the enemy's vision. This explained why the crawler had died in one hit. The skill Backstab had stacked with multiple abilities, creating a terrible damage multiplier. Qin Feng stared at the corpse in silence. He remembered when he played as a warrior. Even a critical hit barely did 40 damage and he had to fight for centuries just to kill a crawler, almost dying in the process. Once the monster died, it dropped a shining orb that was the lifespan. Qin Feng clenched his fist and absorbed the lifespan, gaining 3 days of tradable lifespan in 54 years and 155 days of non-tradable lifespan. 5 people had died, each losing at least between 20 to 30 years of lifespan, adding up to a total of more than 100 years. But since the crawler had absorbed it first, Qin Feng only obtained 54 years. For now, the non-tradable lifespan was not useful. But at that moment, the authority of the Eye of Judgment was activated, granting Qin Feng the talent called Infinite Evolution. By killing monsters solo, he had the chance to earn evolution points to upgrade skills. Every 24 hours, he would gain 5 evolution points, and defeating a boss-class monster alone guaranteed evolution points. Currently, he had 5 points. He had infinite evolution and could improve his skills. In his past life, he had never heard of anything like this. No matter what equipment or skill book monsters dropped, its grade was fixed and there was no way to improve it. This was a power beyond rules and order. Our boy decided to try it out and upgrade Shadow Sneak and Backstab. He spent 4 evolution points and the skills were successfully improved. The starting skill Shadow Sneak went from normal to bronze, and the duration increased from 12 seconds to 16 seconds. The breaking stealth attack bonus increased from 60 to 90 and the cooldown time was reduced by 2 seconds. Backstab went from inferior to normal and the damage increased by 5%. The Shadow Sneak now lasted 16 seconds, and with Stealth Mastery, it doubled to 32 seconds. With such an extended stealth duration, he could now remain invisible permanently, and if his abilities had been improved earlier, he would have been able to eliminate even a full HP crawler in a single strike. Just then, a boy who was accompanied by a woman mentioned that this game was easy since even a scrawny guy like Qin Feng had taken down a monster alone. The woman praised him, thinking that with his physique he would be able to face 10 people. The boy began to smile and promised to protect her. Qin Feng noticed that there was a monster hidden in the tree. With a confident smile, the boy asked if he wanted to team up with them. Qin Feng sensed danger and disappeared using the Shadow Sneak. Seeing this, the boy thought that his muscles had intimidated him. A spider descended to the ground, making them panic. This was the level 1 in bronze grade monster nurturer it attacked, ending their lives. Qin Feng remembered that the nurturer was a beginner boss with 16 OHP points. It was not something that a normal rookie could handle, and besides, it had many small spiders under its command. The nurturer began to feed and Qin Feng took advantage of this moment to check how strong his upgraded abilities were. Using the stealth break strike, Qin Feng stabbed his short blade into the spider's eye. It counterattacked, but Qin Feng reacted in time and after dodging the attack, he moved away and became invisible using Shadow Sneak. Our boy's attack caused 338 damage and in the process, he received 9 damage. He had barely escaped thanks to his agility. Qin Feng had 130 HP points and if the spider's attack had connected, he would have died instantly. He was impressed to see that his attack had dealt more than 300 damage to the boss. The nurturer enraged and in the process split the trees in the area in half. Qin Feng was aware that these monsters were intelligent and that the spider would not just stand still taking hits. The spider was attacking indiscriminately to identify Qin Feng's location. Now even the small spiders were on alert, so he could not rush in recklessly. While the spider was distracted, Qin Feng took the opportunity to throw a rock, which hit its abdomen directly, causing 299 points of damage. Qin Feng grabbed another rock and his assumption was correct, realizing that his main source of damage came from the bonus of the skill Stealth Ambush Strike and the class skill enhancement, so even by throwing rocks he could still deal solid damage. All he had to do now was wait for Shadow Sneak to come off cooldown and then throw a rock. This way, the rock was going to activate the bonuses of Ambush Strike, Backstab, and Weak Point Attack. Once Shadow Sneak came off cooldown, Qin Feng threw another rock again, dealing 279 points of damage to the spider and then activated Shadow Sneak again. His plan was simple, stay hidden until Shadow Sneak was off cooldown and then attack again. At the same time in the town, the leaderboard was updated revealing that the player's shadow had killed the boss nurturer of bronze grade, being the first to reach level 2, rising to the list as number 1. The other players were in shock since most had died to mobs and could not understand how someone had already defeated a boss. Lizzie and the others were speechless upon seeing that Qin Feng had defeated a boss and ascended to level 2, while they could not even handle normal mobs together, believing it must be a system error. The woman and the man who were attacked by the giant spider spawned in the town and were in shock upon seeing that someone had killed that big spider, realizing that Shadow was the boy they had seen earlier in the forest. Back in the forest, the system announced that Qin Feng had killed the boss nurturer, obtaining 300 experience points and 2 evolution points. Additionally, Shelltown's level leaderboard was unlocked, granting our boy 1 reputation point. Qin Feng began to absorb the lifespan of the spider. The moment the big spider died, the small one scattered, which was a waste. He couldn't help but regret it since he should have killed the small spiders first to gain more experience. He obtained 46 tradable lifespan and a new skill book called Greedy Hand of bronze quality along with a corrosive dagger, which had 35 damage points and 4 agility points. After learning the skill Greedy Hand, Qin Feng could use it on defeated monsters, granting a 20% chance to obtain an additional loot reward. Qin Feng was somewhat surprised as he did not expect a bronze boss to drop this god-tier assassin skill. This skill significantly increased loot acquisition. In the late game, defeating powerful bosses would have a 20% chance of producing extra loot. According to what Qin Feng remembered from his past life, there was a guy in the Godslayer guild who had average combat strength. But just because he had this skill, he became one of the most sought-after players. He even had a personal bodyguard who escorted him everywhere. Qin Feng's eyes widened in surprise, realizing that although the activation rate was only 20%, if he combined it with his unlimited evolution talent, he would be able to infinitely increase both the drop rate and the amount of loot. The next day, the students were on their way to school. Xiaoyu's friend asked if she was not going to call Qin Feng and apologize, reminding her that yesterday they had skipped the exam to secretly go and support Song Yi. She was sure that Qin Feng must be angry with her. Xiaoyu refused since she had done nothing wrong, and because of him, they had almost missed the entrance time. According to her, Qin Feng was the one who should apologize. Her friend tried to convince her since Qin Feng treated her very well and also asked what had happened to her face. Xiaoyu stood firm in her decision since all Qin Feng did was meddle in her affairs, and she made up an excuse, saying that she had tripped and hurt her face. Upon entering the school, they saw many students gathered in front of a classroom. The friend became curious and, making her way through the crowd, entered the classroom where she saw that Zhang Wei's body was becoming semi-transparent. One of Zhang Wei's friends explained that he wasn't very sure, but just now, Wei had said he was going to take a nap, and when they turned around, he was already like this. This was not an isolated case, it was all over the internet. People from all over the world were experiencing the same phenomenon, and some experts said that if one fell asleep, they would enter a semi-transparent state like a ghost, and no one knew why. The friend went on alert and decided to call her parents to warn them and advise Xiaoyu to call her brother to warn him as well just in case, but she refused since she preferred to see him dead rather than contact him. Meanwhile, Qin Feng evolved the new skill Greedy Hand, upgrading it from bronze quality to gold. Now, when looting an enemy, the probability of obtaining an extra piece of loot increased from 20% to 70%, and thanks to this, our boy learned Greedy Hand and obtained 2 points. Qin Feng clenched his fist and activated the skill, obtaining 2 evolution points and 46 days of tradable lifespan. He was more than satisfied to have obtained 2 evolution points and knew that to upgrade Greedy Hand to level 3 he needed 3 points, and that soon he would have a 100% chance of obtaining extra loot. He knew that the governments of the world must have realized the situation by now, and more people were going to flood into the game, so he had to accelerate his progress and equip what he could use. Qin Feng equipped the corrosive dagger of bronze quality, gaining 35 attack points and 4 agility points. He activated the shadow stealth to avoid drawing attention from the monsters, knowing that it wouldn't be long before people realized that the skills and equipment from this game could be extracted into the real world, and when that happened, the world would fall into chaos. Extracting skills and equipment required 2 conditions: first, reaching level 10, and second, having enough tradable lifespan. Defeating small monsters took too much time, so he decided to find stronger bosses. While he was walking through the area, he heard someone fighting, and when he went to the cliff, he saw several players fighting against a level 2 sprint predator, bronze grade. Qin Feng was planning to find stronger bosses and now he had found a sprint predator, being a perfect timing. The monster attacked, but the player carrying a shield and mace blocked the attack without much effort. It was Wang Mang. Qin Feng did not expect to meet him here, realizing that the rumors were true. It was said that when Wang Mang first entered Forsaken Game, he had gathered an entire team of hidden class players. The 6 members of his team were hidden class users. Wang Mang summoned the Holy Barrier, creating a golden barrier to repel the monster. He had the hidden class of Holy Shield Warrior, having twice the basic stats of a normal warrior, and, as if that were not enough, he also had an innate invincibility skill. While the monster was distracted, the mage of the team summoned a fireball which hit directly against the creature's arm. She had the mage class hidden profession called Prophet, which allowed her to inflict double the magical damage of a normal mage and came with an incorporated prophetic fireball. The archer of the team had the hidden profession of the archer class called Sharp-Eyed Shotter, granting the user double the stats of a normal archer, and came with an incorporated rapid shot skill. The priest had the Oracle Priest class, having twice the healing power of a normal priest and a group healing ability. The archer and the mage attacked together, but the monster evaded the attacks without much effort and attacked Wang Meng, forcing him to retreat. The archer panicked upon seeing that the ranged attacks were not hitting, thinking that this boss was too fast. The priest healed Wang Meng, and he decided that the best way to defeat this boss was to keep attacking while the healers took care of healing. Seeing that he planned to wear down the monster's health little by little, Qin Feng thought that Wang Meng was very optimistic, but he knew that he was forgetting the most important thing. This was the wild nature, and if a battle dragged on, other monsters would be attracted. Just then, two monsters appeared behind Wang Meng. Qin Feng recognized them as corruptors, regular level 2 monsters covered in dark brown mud, specialized in using ranged attacks. The swordsman of the team rushed towards the monsters and attacked one of them. He had a hidden class that our boy had not seen before. The attack caused 33 points of damage, and the swordsman did not take long to realize that the defense of these monsters was very high. The corruptor vomited mud on the swordsman. It was ground bind and now his movement speed had decreased. The other corruptor began to chase the mage, forcing her to flee with tears in her eyes. But just then, Qin Feng jumped and in the blink of an eye, decapitated the monster, causing 441 points of damage, saving the mage and leaving everyone in shock. Our boy's attack was so powerful that he defeated the corruptor in a single blow. The mage became confused, not knowing who had done this and if someone was helping them. With the help of his sword, the swordsman stood up. He was in shock upon seeing that someone had eliminated a level 2 corruptor with a single blow. While on the other hand, for them to defeat a level 1 corruptor they had to join forces for 10 seconds. The corruptor tried to attack, but again, Qin Feng moved like lightning and decapitated the monster. The swordsman began to tremble with fear and asked if Li Zhai had seen who it had been. She panicked and said that she had not seen it. Wang Meng stood up and asked them not to get distracted. Deep down he hoped that Qin Feng was on their side. Now only the sprint predator remained and our boy was watching from a branch. As a reward for having killed 2 level 2 corruptors, he obtained 40 experience points, 1 evolution point, the skill book called Venom Dart of common quality and 8 days of tradable lifespan. Qin Feng did not waste a second and evolved Venom Dart as it was a perfect mid-range poison damage skill. Upon evolving it, the skill rose to level 2 and went from common quality to silver. It allowed the user to throw a deadly poison dart with a maximum range of 14 meters, inflicting 120 attack damage points upon impact and applying the status venom with a cooldown of 5 seconds. The status venom inflicted 50% continuous damage per second, lasting for 5 seconds and could not be stacked. The monster attacked again. Wang Meng managed to block the attack with his shield, but in the process, the creature stabbed its sharp limb into his stomach. Wang Meng dropped his shield and mace to the ground, and the monster took advantage to stab him with its other limb, causing him terrible pain. The archer began to tremble with fear. The priest panicked knowing that this was not good since he could not heal fast enough. In a desperate attempt, Wang Meng asked them to flee. Qin Feng shot a dart, which lodged in the head of the sprint predator, causing 845 points of damage. The mage and the archer were in shock upon seeing that the attack had taken half of the boss's HP. Both the monster and Wang Meng began to writhe in pain, and venom started to emerge from the monster's wound until its body collapsed to the ground, causing 324 damage multiple times. Since Qin Feng had inflicted more than 90% of the damage, the loot belonged to him, and for having killed the sprint predator, he obtained 600 experience points, reaching level 3, obtaining 2 evolution points and 55 days of tradable lifespan. He did not expect that the damage over time of the venom dart would activate his class's passive ability. With stealth, he could remain invisible and throw darts indefinitely, and now nothing in the early and mid-game could stop him. The loot began to emerge from the monster's corpse. Wang Meng was in shock upon seeing the amount of damage the monster had taken, and several seconds later, the loot disappeared. Wang Meng stood up and thanked Qin Feng for saving them, but our boy made it clear that in the Wildlands, one could not trust people so easily, leaving everyone in shock. Wang Meng thanked our boy for the advice and they decided not to bother him while he was checking the loot. He also added that if he ever needed anything, he could come to find him. Qin Feng picked up the loot, realizing that Wang Meng seemed trustworthy. Plus, he had the backing of Dasha's government, which had many resources. Our boy decided to look for a stable sales channel to sell the unused loot. He used Greedy Hand, gaining 3 evolution points and 55 days of tradable lifespan, acquiring Sprint Predator's bronze quality leather greaves. Our boy equipped the leather greaves, obtaining 9 points in physical defense, 5 points in all elemental resistances, along with a 15% cooldown speed. This had been a great loot since he still had many other class gears and skill books, and once his bag was full, he decided to return to the town and exchange everything for lifespan. His eyes began to shine with confidence since this time his growth was 100 times faster than in his last life. Not far from the area, another team of players was being attacked by more monsters, and seeing that the number of monsters was increasing, they decided it was better to flee. But before they could do so, another much larger monster appeared, and just before the players could escape, the monster attacked with sharp vines, killing them all. The players respawned in the town and couldn't help but feel frustrated since the monsters always appeared in groups and fled when they had low health. It was said that players had to be level 3 to leave the game, but this seemed like an impossible task. Some players thought they needed more people since a team of 3 players was not enough, believing they should form groups of 6 or 10 players. The other player argued that this was not going to work since he had seen a team of 10 be surrounded and wiped out, plus too many people were going to attract a boss, and recently, a group of 40 had activated some Curse Master and it had annihilated more than 30 of them in one single strike. Lizzie's team also spawned back in the town. If the players did not reach level 3, they were going to be trapped inside the game forever. They had all ended up here after falling asleep, so in other words, only their consciousness was inside the game, and if they could not get out, their real bodies were going to starve to death. Lizzie was frustrated because she did not know why the game was so difficult. Her friend panicked since they had already died 3 times and their non-tradable lifespan had dropped to less than 10 years, and at this rate, they were going to end up dying in real life. Despite not knowing if it was real or not, Lizzie knew that they could not afford to die again. Upon seeing that Shadow was level 3, she was somewhat confused, realizing that he must have discovered some trick. She knew they needed him to carry them to level 3 in order to escape this game. Clenching her fist, she gave the order to her team to spread the word. They had to get Shadow to help them reach level 3. She was determined to give him 10 million in cash once they returned to reality. The others were in shock, but she knew there was no way Shadow could ignore the 10 million. Back in the forest, our boy took down a level 2 polluter, earning 20 experience points and 1 evolution point. After absorbing the lifespan of the monster, Qin Feng decided that he already had enough evolution points and decided to spend the 5 points he had to evolve Greedy Hand. It improved in quality, going from platinum to emerald, increasing the probability of obtaining extra loot to 160%, and now the extra loot had a 20% probability of being 1 tier higher. Qin Feng was amazed knowing that the effect was insane, realizing that if he kept evolving, it would reach 100% or even 200%. It was raining, and something caught Qin Feng's attention. It was the monster called Curse Master which was wandering through the forest. This monster was a bronze tier boss and was consuming vital force to advance to a silver tier boss. For Qin Feng, it was normal that this boss had annihilated a team of 40 men. For now, our boy had a full inventory, so even if he killed the monster, he wouldn't be able to pick up the loot, so for now, he decided to mark this place on the map. The boss's evolution took some time, so he thought about emptying his inventory first and coming back later. In the town, the news that someone was offering 10 million for Shadow, the number 1 player on the leaderboard, to help them level up quickly had spread everywhere. People were dying, losing lifespan, so the rich had already started looking for a way to escape, meaning that the commoners were doomed. While people were chatting, Qin Feng appeared in the town, leaving everyone in shock. Using the system, he activated the market stall option, making the system announce that he was selling equipment and skills with the stall available for only 10 minutes. The players were in shock upon seeing that he was wearing 2 pieces of bronze tier gear, and furthermore was selling 2 more. They still couldn't believe that he had killed a bronze tier boss. One of the players asked why they couldn't see Qin Feng's face. Another player explained that he had enabled the face concealment function, making the in-game appearance match the real one, so for this reason he wanted to remain mysterious. A mage approached our boy's stall and with a curious gaze asked how much for the icicle spell, to which Qin Feng replied that it was 100 days of tradable lifespan. She was Grey Rose, currently ranked 11 in Shell Town, who also had face concealment activated. For Rose, 100 days of lifespan was a lot, so she asked if he could lower the price, to which Qin Feng explained that the common tier skill icicle spell increased a mage's early farming speed, and 100 days was already a bargain. Rose asked if she could use real-world money, but Qin Feng refused to accept it, advising her that if she had cash, she could first buy tradable lifespan and then exchange it with him, and if no one offered more, he was determined not to sell the skill until she had the lifespan. She started to ponder, and then using the team channel, she asked her teammates if this was a good offer. They had leveled up to level 2 so quickly thanks to her leadership, so they showed no objections. Moreover, with this skill, they would be able to reach level 3 even faster since the most important thing was escaping first. She asked them to transfer their tradable lifespan to her, promising to send them money when they returned. She handed over the 100 days of tradable lifespan to our boy. Seeing that all of her team members were level 2, Qin Feng realized that they must have killed at least 30 or 40 crawlers. Therefore, their tradable lifespan should be much greater than 100 days. Qin Feng sold the spell, obtaining 100 days of tradable lifespan. Now his tradable lifespan went from 268 days to 368 days. Just then Lizzie appeared and was happy to have found Shadow. With a smile, she gave him an opportunity. In exchange for helping her ascend to level 3, she promised to give him 10 million in money when they returned to the real world. The other players were in shock. She was Jiang Lizzie, and in our boy's past life, she was the leader of a criminal syndicate. Later her syndicate was annihilated by the country. With a confident smile, she said that her father was the president of Dajiang Industries, and seeing that our boy didn't believe her, she asked him to look her up. According to reports, it was said that she used cash to lure people into selling their lifespan, then kidnapped them for forced labor, and those who had resisted had been murdered in reality. Qin Feng coldly rejected the offer knowing that she was scum. Lizzie admitted that Shadow was strong in this game but revealed that no one knew how the game worked yet, so she advised him to team up with her, and in return, she would make sure he lived in luxury, cars, houses, women, and everything he wanted. Qin Feng did not change his mind and asked her to stop blocking his business. He better than anyone knew that cash was worth nothing, and soon, the only universal currency was going to be the tradable lifespan. Lizzie became arrogant and made it clear that if this were the real world, she would have given him a good lesson. With a murderous look, Qin Feng made it clear that if she said another word, he was going to kill her until her lifespan reached 0. Lizzie and her friends felt the pressure and without losing a second, they ran away from the place. A few minutes later, our boy sold the last item from his stall, the gleam robe of tier bronze. Now he had a total of 546 days of tradable lifespan. Now that he had sold everything, he decided it was time to go deal with the curse master. He became invisible. No one knew it yet, but the tradable lifespan could extract skills into reality, and soon this Forsaken game was going to plunge the real world into chaos. Along with the real world backgrounds that people once took pride in, soon only personal strength would matter.